Okay, so this video is going to cover 5.4 to 5.8. So if you want to open up your grammar and context book to page 159, you can follow along there. Like I said in class, I really think it'd be useful if when you watch this video that you also take down notes in your book so that you have them back to refer to. Okay, let me start off by saying that this whole count versus non-count nouns thing tends to be really confusing for a lot of ESL students. Okay, so if you feel confused about it to begin with, don't beat yourself up. It's normal. Okay, what I'm going to do in this video is just sort of go over it generally, and then we'll have the opportunity to do more exercises in class. There's not a lot of exercises in the book, so I'll bring some worksheets in that we can use to practice. Okay, the first thing that I want to say is, why are we even talking about the difference between count and non-count nouns? The reason is, again, is because of how they are used and the grammar that we can use with count nouns that we can't use with non-count nouns. So if you remember earlier on, we talked about the difference between action and non-action verbs. And I said the whole reason for you learning the difference between those is so that you know that non-action verbs are not used in the continuous tense. This is a similar situation. We need to know what the difference is between count and non-count nouns because they're not used the exact same way. Okay? So let's first talk about what a count noun is. It's just what it sounds like. It's a count noun that's something that can be counted. What that means is that it has a singular and a plural form. So in the first example, it says use 1 potato in the recipe. That's singular. And use 3 potatoes in the soup. That's plural. Okay, so a count is something that you can count. Is the general one. It does get more confusing than that. Okay, so then the next thing is, what about a non-count noun? Well, the simple answer is that a non-count noun is something that we can't count. But here's the most important thing. Okay, it does not have a plural form. It's always, always, always singular. We never make it plural. Okay? That's the thing that you have to know about non-count nouns, is that they're never plural. So if corn is a non-count noun, so we say corn is native to America. Even if we're talking about a lot of corn, we're not going to say 3 corns are native to America or put 3 corns in the soup. Okay, and we'll explain this a little bit more clearly later, and with the practice I hope it will become more clear as well. Okay, so again, the most important thing about the difference between count and non-count nouns is that count nouns can be singular and plural, but non-count nouns can only be singular. They have no plural form. Okay, so I'm divided the non-count nouns into the 5 different categories that are mentioned on page 160. Okay, these are not all the categories, but there's some of them, and there's some of the more common ones. Okay, so the first category is nouns that don't have any clear separate parts or things that we look at as a whole. So we can break those down further into different groups. So when we talk about liquids like milk, oil, water, juice, we can't cut up milk or cut up water or cut up juice. It doesn't have any clear separate parts. Bread, meat, butter, pork. I know that we can cut these things up, but when we're talking about meat, we're talking about the whole thing. When we're talking about bread, we're talking about sort of all the bread. The other one is, the next one is gases. We can't cut this up. Air, carbon dioxide, we can't talk about the pieces of them. And then we have these things in weather like lightning or thunder or rain. These are not things that have very clear separate pieces. Okay? The next group is nouns that have pieces, but the pieces are too small to count. So if we talk about rice, we could divide up rice there into little grains, okay? But those pieces are so small. Same with sugar, same with hair, same with grass, okay? These are too small to count. The next one is nouns that we consider as classes or categories, meaning that the noun is describing a big group of things. So for example, with money, money is describing a whole bunch of things. It's describing all the different coins, nickels, dimes, pennies, quarters, but it also describes all the bills, $5, $6, $5, $10, $20 bills, right? So similarly, furniture. Furniture is describing a whole bunch of different things, chairs, tables, beds, okay? And homework too, and this is one that people often make this mistake, and they say homeworks, but this is not correct. But the parts of homework, we say readings, questions, assignments. It's made up of many different things. So the next one is nouns that are ideas. Okay, the book uses the word abstractions, and abstraction basically means an idea that doesn't have any shape or form or physical form to it. So something like love, truth, education, fun, these are all nouns, but we can't touch them. And then the last one is subjects of study. So these are things that you study in school: history, chemistry, grammar, math. Okay, math is an interesting one for those of you guys who have studied British English. People will talk about maths. Americans don't use maths. We just say math. Okay. But again, these are all non-count nouns, and the important thing that we need to know about non-count nouns is that they don't have a plural form. So we're not going to put S's on these. All right, except when we do. So as is true with so much of English, there's always exceptions to the rules. So there are some nouns that can be both count and non-count. And I'm just going to focus on 3 categories here. This is similar to the information you have on page 161, but it's just, I hope that it's a little bit clearer for you to help you remember the difference. Okay, so we have 3 groups for nouns that can be both count and non-count. Okay, so the first group is idea versus specific example. So when you're talking about an idea, so the example is, I have experience with teaching. We're not talking about a specific time that I taught. We're just talking about the idea of experience. Okay? In that case, it's non-count. But when we talk about a specific example, like I have had experiences teaching in Oman and in the United States, we're talking about specific times, specific experiences, then it's count. Okay? And we can make it plural. The next one is general versus specific. So when I say general, I mean that we're not talking about one specific kind. We're talking about all of them. When I specific, we're talking about a specific kind. So I like fruit. This is general. It doesn't say what kind of fruit I like. But the next one says, I like many fruits, such as apples, oranges, and bananas. So what I'm saying there when I say fruits is many types of fruit, many different kinds. I'm being specific about the exact fruits that I like. The last one here is the difference between the part of something and the whole. So when you're talking about a part of something, and this specifically is dealing most of the time with food, right? When we're talking about part of the food, it's non-count. So I had some pie. What this means is that I had a piece of pie. Okay, it doesn't mean I ate a whole pie. It means that I had a piece of it. But when I'm talking about the whole pie, I can count. I can have it count. So I made 3 pies. This is talking about whole ones. Okay? This is not easy to understand. Just for right now, write down these different groups. We'll go over and we'll practice them in class, but write down the different groups so that you have them, so that you can refer back to them. You may not understand it right away, but we'll go over it, and if you have this to refer back to, I think that it will help you. All right, so one of the things that we said about non-count nouns is that we can't count them. So if we do want to count them, we have to use special words. And these words are called quantity words. Okay? So we can't put a number in front of a non-count noun, but we can put a quantity word. So we have 5 different types of quantities here. We have where we can do it by container, by portion, by measurement, by shape or whole piece, or there's the other group. So by container, we can say a bottle of water. This is on page 164. There's a number of them. A glass of water, a bowl of soup, a can of soda. The container is the thing that it's in. We can also do it by portion. Portion means the serving size. A slice of bread, a piece of meat, a strip of bacon. We can do it by measurement, a pound of meat. Or we can do it by shape, or the whole thing. A loaf of bread means all of the bread, all of the bread. Or we can say these other ones, a piece of mail, a work of art, a homework assignment. Okay? This one, in my experience in the past, is that this is something that is a little bit easier for students to understand. But again, we'll do more practice on this to help you with it. All right, and so then the last 2 things we want to talk about is tables 5.7 and 5.8. I'm going to actually talk about 5.8 in class, so don't worry too much about that. But let me talk here about word order again. So when we use there, this is a different word order. Normally in a sentence, the subject will go at the beginning of the sentence before the verb. But when we use there, the subject actually comes after the verb. So in this case, we say there, then a form of the verb be, then we can have a quantity word or an a or an an or a one. Then we have the subject and then the complement. So we have there is a reservation in Wyoming. The subject is reservation, which is singular, so the verb is. The second one is there is a lot of unemployment on some reservations. Okay? Unemployment is the subject, and it is a non-count noun, so that we know that's always singular, so the verb is. The third one is there are 500 Indian tribes in the U.S. Indian tribes is a plural count noun, so therefore the verb is are. The thing that you need to remember about using there is that there doesn't tell us whether the verb it should be singular or plural. The subject, which comes after the verb to be, is what tells us that. So let's look at it. Let's take a look at these examples, which unfortunately I've already given you the answers to. So I'm actually going to skip over that, and we can do that in class. But let's look at this. This is with negatives. So we have a similar order with negatives. We have there, plus we have the verb to be, plus the no or not. Then we have a, an, or any, then the subject, and then the complement. So we have 2 ways of saying the same thing. So I can say there wasn't a problem, or I can say there was no problem. The difference between those is that when I say there was no problem, I don't use a or an or any. Look at the next one. There isn't any milk in the recipe. Milk is a non-count noun, so it's singular, so it isn't. But then we have there is no milk in the recipe. you'll see that when I use no, I don't use a, an, or any. Similarly, look at the next one. There aren't any reservations in Illinois. Okay? But then I say there are no reservations in Illinois. So when I use no, I don't use a, an, or many. Okay? All right, so we will go over the exercises in the class. Write down any questions that you have about this. Don't feel bad if any of this is complex for you. We will if you bring your questions into class, hopefully you'll be able to understand it clearly by the end of class. All right, take care. See you in class. Bye.